Oh man, welcome back to Project 613. Today we are going to learn two mitzvahs pertaining to Shabbos, one mitzvah for today, Friday, and one for tomorrow, Shabbos' mitzvah. The first mitzvah of today is a negative prohibition that we already learned, and we're going to review that and add some more details to it, and that is Lo Satsa Kol Malacha. On Shabbos we have a negative command. We are told not to do any work on the day of Shabbos. And this is a generic command which includes all of the 39 categories of work. But today we're going to focus on one of those, which is the prohibition against carrying on Shabbos. Where do we get all the information from as to what is prohibited on Shabbos? So we know that whatever was done to help construct the Mishkan, the tabernacle that the Jewish people built as they were traveling in the desert, whatever work was necessary to be done to create that is forbidden for us to do on Shabbos. And carrying on Shabbos is prohibited as the Jewish people had to collect all of their donations and all of their belongings from their tents, from their own personal private domains, and bring that out into the public area. And therefore, on Shabbos, there is a biblical prohibition to carry anything from your private home, your private domain, out into the street or out into a public area. And interestingly, this specific mitzvah, although it doesn't change the status of anything, most of the categories of work on Shabbos is changing something from, let's say, a raw piece of dough to a beautiful baked piece of loaf of bread. Although we're not changing the status of anything, the Torah has another verse which explicitly tells us that this is prohibited on Shabbos. Now, the second mitzvah for today leads us into, which is really for tomorrow's mitzvah for Shabbos, is the mitzvah of creating what's called an eruv. What is one to do if, for example, it was very common in the olden days where people would have a shared courtyard. You would have many, many homes, and it wasn't the public street that was available for everyone, but it was a shared courtyard for those homes, like a shared backyard. And let's say you wanted to bring something into that courtyard, or you wanted to bring something from your house to the neighbor's house, and you had to go through that courtyard. Although that technically wouldn't be biblically prohibited, as it's not a public domain, but I believe it was King Solomon which declared that that would be too close to carrying, and therefore, in order to make sure that no one makes a mistake and thinks that you're allowed to carry just like you can carry in this courtyard, you can carry in the public domain. He said it's forbidden to carry in this courtyard unless you make something called an eruv. An eruv is something which combines the inhabitants of the homes of this shared courtyard and shows that they have a common denominator, something that brings them together, and they therefore can use this shared space as well, as this isn't public space, but this is something which they all take part in, they all own. And that would be a special type of eruv, which they would all chip in, they would purchase some food, and place it in the courtyard. And the same is true with a quieter street or smaller village. You would also be able to make an eruv, which an eruv would be walling in the city, taking the street and making it into a private domain. So the laws of this are very complex, but there are ways how it will be possible to allow someone to actually carry outside in the street. And right here in Buffalo Grove, there's an eruv, and in many Jewish communities around the world, they would create something called an eruv to help allow people to actually carry on Shabbos without violating the biblical prohibition of not carrying on Shabbos.